Sometimes, the heaviest burdens aren't the ones you carry on your shoulders. They're the ones you hold in your heart. There's a weight you've been carrying, maybe for years. You can't see it, but you feel it every moment of every day. It's there when you wake up, when you try to fall asleep, and even in those quiet pauses when the world around you goes still. Most people call this weight guilt, or shame, or regret. They point to the mistakes they've made, the opportunities they've missed, or the words they wish they could take back. But what if I told you this weight isn't just an emotion or a memory lodged somewhere in your mind? What if it's something much deeper, something woven into the very energy field that surrounds you? I call it quantum weight. This isn't a poetic idea or some vague metaphor. It's real. It's a subtle, invisible density that forms when emotions go unresolved, when experiences are never fully processed. Imagine a river that's meant to flow freely. Every time you hold on to pain, anger, or fear, it's like tossing a stone into that river. One stone doesn't stop the flow, but year after year, stone after stone, the water begins to clog, twist, and swell, until the river can barely move at all. That's what happens to your consciousness. You can't see the stones, but you can feel them. You feel it in the way life seems stuck, like you're walking in circles, no matter how hard you try to move forward. You feel it when you've read the books, followed the strategies, recited the affirmations, yet somehow, nothing seems to change. This isn't because you're broken. It's because your energy is congested, and just like water under pressure, there comes a point when something has to give. In physics, there's a concept called a phase transition. It's the moment when heat builds up inside ice until suddenly it transforms into water. No warning, no slow shift, just a profound change in state. Your inner world works the same way. All that unspoken pain, the stories you've carried, the self-judgment you've hidden away, they've been building inside you, quietly shaping the reality you experience. And now, here you are, standing right at that breaking point. This isn't a collapse. It's not the end of the story. It's an invitation to release the stones that have been damming up your river, an invitation to let go, so your energy can move freely again. An invitation to step through a door into a completely new way of being. When you reach this threshold, you may feel fear. You may feel like you're about to lose yourself. But what you're really losing are the layers that were never truly you to begin with. The false identities built on guilt, on old wounds, on survival patterns you no longer need. I want you to hear me clearly. This moment is not a punishment. It's a passage. The heaviness you feel right now is proof that something inside you is ready to shift. It's your soul saying, enough. And just beyond that threshold is a freedom so vast, you can hardly imagine it right now. As you stand here, at the edge of your own transformation, take a breath, feel it. You don't have to fight your way through. You don't have to force anything to happen. All you have to do is allow, like ice melting into water. Your only task is to let the natural intelligence of life move through you. Today, you are standing in front of a door that has always been there, waiting. The question is no longer whether you're worthy of stepping through it, or whether you know how. The only question is, will you say yes? Because when you do, the weight that once felt unbearable won't just disappear. It will transform into the very power that carries you forward. And for the first time, you'll feel what it's like to move freely, to live lightly, to flow like a river, finally return to its source. 1. Quantum weight, the invisible burden you carry. There's a kind of weight that no one else can see, yet you feel it with every step you take. It doesn't live on your shoulders or in your hands, but deep within you, woven into your very being. This is what I call quantum weight. And it's far more than just an idea or a poetic metaphor. Quantum weight is real. It's not abstract or imaginary. It's a subtle, invisible field of energy shaped by every unprocessed emotion you've ever felt, every painful memory you've tried to bury, every truth you were too afraid to face. These unresolved fragments don't simply disappear with time. They stay with you, like echoes in an empty room, like waves that keep bouncing back because they have nowhere else to go. Think of your energy field as a still pond. When life is flowing, the water is clear, calm, and reflective. But every time you experience a hurt that you don't fully acknowledge, it's like dropping a stone into that pond. The ripples don't fade away completely. Instead, they interact, colliding with new ripples each time another unresolved emotion arises. Over the years, these ripples grow so tangled and chaotic that the once clear pond becomes distorted. You no longer see life as it truly is. You only see it through the turbulence created by your past. That's what quantum weight does. It bends your perception. It distorts your experience of reality. Have you ever wondered why certain patterns keep showing up in your life? Why you keep meeting the same kind of person, facing the same kind of setback, or feeling trapped in a cycle you desperately want to escape? It's not because you're cursed. It's not because the world is against you. It's because your field, your consciousness, is carrying the energetic signatures of those old experiences, and like a magnet, it draws to you circumstances that match its frequency. Imagine walking into a room with a heavy heart. Even if you say nothing, people can feel something about you. They respond, often unconsciously, to the energy you bring. In the same way, the universe itself responds to your unspoken energy. It mirrors back to you the weight you carry inside. That's why two people can be in the exact same situation, yet one sees opportunity, while the other sees only walls. Quantum weight is like wearing a pair of glasses you forgot you had on. Over time, you stop noticing them, but they quietly tint everything you see. A simple conversation might feel like criticism. A challenge might feel like a personal attack. A chance for growth might appear as a threat. The world hasn't changed, you have toothing the biling. Or more accurately, your unresolved energy has shaped how you interpret the world. And here's the part most people miss. This isn't just about feelings or psychology. It's physics. These old experiences, these unexpressed emotions, they don't just live in your mind. They live in your body, in the very fabric of your energy field. They form standing waves, like the resonance you hear when a sound echoes perfectly between two walls. These waves don't fade on their own. They layer on top of each other, creating interference patterns, complex, tangled frequencies that shape how life responds to you. This is why trying to think positive often doesn't work. You can't cover a turbulent ocean with a thin sheet of calm. The turbulence must be acknowledged, felt, and transformed at its source. Otherwise, it keeps pulling you back, like an undertow beneath the surface. I know this weight well. I've carried it myself. There was a time when I thought I could outrun it by working harder, by distracting myself, by pretending it wasn't there. But no matter how far I went, it followed me. Because it wasn't out there, it was within me. Recognizing quantum weight is the first step toward freedom. It's like finally turning to face the shadow you've been avoiding and realizing it was never here to destroy you. It was only here to be seen, to be understood, to be healed. When you begin to see this clearly, something profound happens. You stop fighting against life, and you start working with it. You begin to understand that what feels like a burden is actually a map, a guide, showing you exactly where your consciousness is ready to grow. This is the journey of quantum weight, not to erase the past, but to transform it, not to push the river, but to clear the stones so the water can flow freely again. And as you do, you'll begin to feel lighter, not just emotionally, but energetically, like a bird finally remembering it was born to fly. 2. Distorted choices. Seeing through the lens of quantum weight. Have you ever wondered how two people can stand side by side, looking at the very same world, and yet live completely different lives. They walk the same streets, breathe the same air, face the same opportunities, and somehow, one of them thrives, while the other feels trapped, lost, or left behind. On the surface, it doesn't seem fair. You might look at their circumstances and think, they have the same chances I do. So why does their life seem so different from mine? But the truth is, it's never just about outer circumstances. The difference lies in what you perceive, what you allow yourself to see, and what remains hidden in plain sight. This is where quantum weight comes in. Quantum weight acts like a filter over your perception. Imagine wearing a pair of glasses with dark, scratched lenses. Over time, you forget you're even wearing them, but they quietly color everything you see. The world hasn't changed, yet your experience of it is altered. Some things become blurry, distorted, even invisible. When you carry unhealed pain, guilt, or fear, it doesn't just live inside you. It shapes what you notice, what you pay attention to, and even what you believe is possible for you. You might walk past an open door and never step through, simply because the filter of your quantum weight tells you that door isn't meant for you, or worse, that it isn't there at all. I've seen this play out so many times. A person longs for love, but deep down, they carry the belief that they are unworthy or unlovable. When someone kind and open-hearted appears in their life, they don't truly see that person for who they are. Instead, their quantum weight distorts the image. They might convince themselves, this is too good to be true, or push the person away out of fear. They don't realize they are reacting to an old frequency, not the present reality. Meanwhile, another person with a clear field walks into the same situation and recognizes the opportunity immediately. To them, the door is wide open. To you, it's invisible. This is why willpower alone often isn't enough to change your life. You can work hard, say the affirmations, take all the right steps, but if you are carrying heavy patterns within your energy, those patterns quietly dictate which paths you notice and which ones you unconsciously ignore. Think of it like standing in a room full of radios, each tuned to a different station. The opportunities, connections, and experiences you desire are all broadcasting their signals right now. But you can only hear the station you're tuned into. If your inner frequency is filled with fear, shame, or scarcity, that's the signal you'll pick up, and it will seem like that's all there is. Meanwhile, the frequency of love, abundance, and possibility is playing loudly on another channel. It's there, but you can't hear it. So, you assume it doesn't exist, when in truth, it's been there all along, waiting for you to tune in. This is the heartbreaking thing about quantum weight. It doesn't just make you feel heavy, it limits your vision. It tricks you into believing that your current reality is all that's possible. And because you believe it, you make choices that reinforce that belief. This is how cycles are born. You repeat the same patterns not because you want to, but because you can't see beyond them. Like a bird trapped in a room with the window wide open. You keep flying into the same walls, not realizing that freedom was just a few feet away. But here's the good news. Once you become aware of the filter, you can begin to lift it. Awareness is like light shining through fog. At first, the haze doesn't disappear instantly, but you begin to notice shapes you couldn't see before. A door appears where you once saw only a blank wall. A solution emerges where you once felt cornered. The opportunities haven't changed. You have. I remember a time in my life when I felt stuck in a job that drained me. I believed there were no other options. My quantum weight whispered stories of fear and scarcity. You'll never find something better. You're not good enough. Who would hire you? And because I believed those stories, I didn't see the openings all around me. It wasn't until I began releasing some of that inner weight that things shifted. Suddenly, conversations that I used to overlook, became meaningful connections. Ideas that once seemed out of reach started to feel possible. It was as if the world had been rearranged overnight. But in truth, the world was always the same. The only thing that changed was what I could see. Quantum weight doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It shapes your reality by shaping your perception. When you clear even a small piece of it, life begins to reveal pathways you didn't know existed. Choices that were once distorted become clear. And slowly, step by step, you begin to live in a world that feels open, expansive, and full of possibility. The very same world that was there all along. The miracle isn't that the world changes. The miracle is that you finally see it clearly. 3. Quantum weight, the invisible force shaping our collective future. There is a truth we often forget in our modern, fast-paced world. None of us are truly separate. We move through life thinking our pain is ours alone. Our struggles are private, and our fears belong only to us. But beneath the surface, there's an invisible thread that connects every human being, a shared field of consciousness that links our hearts, our minds, and our destinies. Your inner weight, the pain you carry, doesn't just stay locked inside of you. It ripples outward, like a single stone dropped into a vast lake. At first, those ripples seem small, almost unnoticeable. But as countless stones fall, each representing the unresolved pain of millions of people, the surface of the lake begins to churn. It no longer reflects the sky clearly. It becomes chaotic, restless, heavy. This is collective quantum weight. When many people carry fear, scarcity, anger, or limiting beliefs, those energies don't remain isolated. They merge, intertwine, and form patterns that shape the very reality we all live in. These collective patterns influence everything from the choices we make as individuals to the events we witness as a society. Wars are not born overnight. Neither are economic collapses, revolutions, or cultural shifts. They are the visible outcomes of countless invisible frequencies colliding over time. You see, what happens inside one person doesn't just stay inside. If you've ever walked into a room and immediately felt the tension in the air, you've experienced this on a small scale. Now, imagine that on a global level. Imagine billions of unspoken fears, generational wounds, and inherited beliefs converging in the collective field. It creates a weight so vast that it shapes the trajectory of humanity itself. This is why we often see history repeat itself. It's not just about politics or economics. It's about unresolved energy patterns being replayed again and again, until someone somewhere chooses to break the cycle, until someone decides to heal. And here is where you come in. It's easy to feel powerless when you look at the state of the world. The problem seems so big, so far beyond what one person could ever fix. But healing doesn't begin with fixing the world out there. It begins inside you. When you release even a small piece of your personal quantum weight, you don't just change your life, you subtly lighten the collective field we all share. Think of it like a dark, crowded room. If even one person lights a candle, the entire space changes. Others can see a little more clearly. Fear softens, if only slightly, and perhaps, seeing that light, someone else decides to light their candle too. Your healing works in the same way. The moment you choose to face your inner fears, your old beliefs, and your inherited pain, you're not just doing it for yourself. You're creating a ripple that affects people you may never meet, in places you may never go. Every act of inner freedom becomes an offering to the collective, a quiet rebellion against the weight that has kept humanity trapped for so long. I know it might sound small, even insignificant, but imagine what would happen if thousands or millions of people did this together. Imagine if, instead of fueling the collective weight with more fear and anger, we each tended to our own hearts, clearing our own energy fields, moment by moment, the ripple effect would be unstoppable. This is why personal work is never selfish. In fact, it is one of the most generous things you can do. When you free yourself from the grip of fear, you naturally influence the people around you. You speak differently. You act differently. Your presence begins to carry a calm, coherent energy that helps others feel safe enough to explore their own healing. Without even trying, you become a lighthouse in a storm, not by shouting directions, but simply by shining. And here's the deeper truth. Collective healing doesn't require everyone to wake up at once. It only takes a critical mass of people to shift the balance, much like a flock of birds that suddenly changes direction when just a few lead the way. Human consciousness can pivot when enough of us choose clarity over confusion, love over fear, freedom over limitation. So the next time you feel overwhelmed by the heaviness of the world, remember this: you are not powerless. Every breath you take with awareness, every moment you choose to respond with compassion instead of reaction, every layer of weight you release from your own field, these are acts of profound service. When you heal, you're not just rewriting your personal story. You're helping to write a new story for humanity. And while you may never see the full impact of your work, trust that it matters. Because somewhere, someone will breathe a little easier because of the light you chose to kindle within yourself. That is how the future changes. Not with a single sweeping act, but with countless quiet moments of individual courage, woven together into a collective awakening. And it all begins right here with you. 4. Seeing your pain as a gift. For most of my life, I treated my pain as an enemy. The guilt that crept in late at night, the shame that burned in my chest, the regrets that played over and over in my mind like a broken record, these were things I wanted to erase, hide, or bury so deep that no one, not even myself, could ever find them again. I thought that healing meant getting rid of these feelings, scrubbing them out of my soul until I was left perfectly clean and whole. But over time, I learned a deeper truth. Pain isn't here to punish us. It's here to teach us. The emotions you've been avoiding are not just burdens. They are condensed wisdom, waiting patiently for you to uncover them. Like seeds buried deep in the dark soil, they hold the potential for growth and transformation, but only if you are willing to dig beneath the surface and tend to them with care. Most of us resist this. We live in a world that tells us to stay busy, stay positive, keep moving forward. We're taught to silence our pain or cover it up with distractions, achievements, or a carefully crafted smile. But ignoring pain doesn't make it go away, it simply buries it deeper. And over time, that buried pain becomes quantum weight, shaping our choices, distorting our vision, and quietly limiting what we believe is possible. I remember a moment in my own life when everything seemed to fall apart. I was sitting alone in a small, dimly lit room, feeling like a failure. Every mistake I'd ever made seemed to rise up at once, surrounding me like shadows whispering, "You'll never change. You'll never be enough." For a long time, I believed those voices. I thought my only option was to fight them or to drown them out. But in that silence, something unexpected happened. Instead of trying to push the pain away, I allowed myself to simply sit with it. I breathed deeply and said to my own heart, "What are you trying to show me?" And slowly, I began to hear a different voice beneath the noise, the voice of truth. It didn't sound like blame or judgment. It sounded like compassion. It said, "This shame you feel isn't here to destroy you. It's showing you the places where you've been disconnected from yourself. This regret isn't here to trap you. It's pointing you toward what truly matters to you." That was the moment I realized pain is a messenger. The guilt, the anger, the grief, they are signals from your inner world, guiding you back to wholeness. They say, "Look here, pay attention. There's something important you've been ignoring." When you begin to listen, you stop seeing your pain as a heavy stone you must carry forever. Instead, it becomes like a map, leading you to the hidden parts of yourself that are ready to be healed. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It takes patience, tenderness, and the willingness to be honest with yourself, but the rewards are profound. Think about fire for a moment. Fire can burn and destroy, yes, but it can also warm a home, light a path, or force drang metal. Pain is the same way. If you fight against it blindly, it will scorch you. But if you learn to work with it, to extract the wisdom from its flames, it becomes a powerful source of transformation. Every past mistake holds a lesson about who you want to become. Every heartbreak contains a deeper understanding of what love truly is. Every regret points you toward the values you hold most sacred. When you take the time to reflect, to feel, and to honor these lessons, you no longer see your past as something to escape. It becomes the very fuel for your growth. This is what it means to transform pain into wisdom. It's not about pretending everything is okay or rewriting history with false positivity. It's about facing what was real, acknowledging it fully, and then letting it guide you into a more conscious future. So the next time you feel that familiar ache in your chest or the tightness in your throat, pause for a moment. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this?" try asking, "What is this here to teach me?" You might be surprised by the answer. You might discover that the very thing you've been running from is actually the key to your freedom. Because when you embrace your pain as a teacher rather than an enemy, you no longer just survive your past, you alchemize it. And in doing so, you give yourself the greatest gift of all, the chance to grow into someone wiser, more compassionate, and more deeply alive than you ever imagined. Your pain was never meant to break you. It was meant to break you open. 5. Quantum sensitivity, the quiet art of feeling beyond the noise. There's a subtle skill that few people talk about, yet it changes everything when you begin to cultivate it. I call it quantum sensitivity, the ability to sense energy directly, beyond words, beyond appearances, beyond the stories your mind likes to tell. Most of us move through life relying only on what we can see and measure. We judge situations based on surface facts, other people's opinions, or the limited data our mind can gather. But beneath the surface of every experience, there's a flow of energy, quiet, invisible, yet deeply real. When you learn to sense this flow, it's like learning a new language, one that your soul has always understood, but your mind may have forgotten. Quantum sensitivity begins in stillness. It doesn't require special tools or mystical rituals. It starts with something as simple and as profound as paying attention to how your body and heart respond in any given moment. Because your body never lies. Think about the last time you walked into a room and instantly felt uneasy, even before anyone spoke. Or the way your chest expanded when you met someone who radiated warmth and authenticity. That wasn't your imagination. That was your inner field reading the energy around you. We all have this capacity, but for most of us, it's buried under layers of noise, old fears, unprocessed pain, cultural conditioning, and the constant chatter of the mind. It's like trying to hear a whisper while standing next to a roaring waterfall. The whisper of truth is always there, but you have to quiet the noise to hear it. When you begin to develop quantum sensitivity, you start to notice the difference between two kinds of energy, contracted and expansive. Contracted energy feels heavy, tight, and closed off. It often comes with fear, doubt, or a sense of not enough. Expansive energy feels light, open, and alive. It carries a quiet sense of possibility and flow. Your mind may not always understand why something feels heavy or light, but your body does. And learning to trust these subtle signals is a powerful form of guidance. I remember a time when I was faced with a difficult decision about work. On paper, one option looked perfect. It was logical, financially secure, and aligned with what others thought I should do. But every time I imagined saying yes to it, My stomach tightened. My breath became shallow, and a quiet sadness crept in. The other option was riskier. It didn't make sense logically, but when I pictured stepping into it, I felt a surprising sense of lightness and relief, as if my whole being was whispering, "This is the way." Developing quantum sensitivity taught me to honor that whisper, and every time I've listened, I've discovered paths and opportunities that my rational mind could never have predicted. This is the essence of navigating life through energy rather than fear or expectation. Instead of forcing outcomes or overthinking every choice, you begin to flow with the natural currents of the quantum field. It's like learning to swim with the tide instead of thrashing against it. You move with less effort, and life begins to reveal its hidden doorways. At first, this practice can feel subtle, almost imperceptible, but as you keep tuning in, you become more fluent in the language of energy. You notice when a conversation lifts you up or drains you. You sense when an opportunity is truly aligned, or when it's just a shiny distraction. And gradually, you realize you're no longer living on autopilot. You're awake, aware, and deeply connected to the flow of life. Quantum sensitivity also helps you recognize when you're slipping back into old patterns, when your field begins to contract, when heaviness starts to creep in. You don't have to judge yourself or panic. You simply notice it, like a change in the weather. You pause, breathe, and ask, "What is this energy telling me? What needs to shift right now?" In this way, even discomfort becomes a form of guidance. The beauty of this sensitivity is that it leads you beyond the limits of logic. Your mind can only work with what it already knows. But your energy field is connected to something much larger, the intelligence of the universe itself. When you tune into that intelligence, you start to perceive possibilities that your rational mind would have dismissed or overlooked entirely. Opportunities that once seemed hidden suddenly appear. Paths that felt blocked begin to open. And challenges that once seemed insurmountable transform into invitations for growth. Over time, you come to trust this process deeply. You realize that life is always communicating with you, not through words, but through vibration and feeling. And as you develop quantum sensitivity, you step into a more authentic way of living, one that isn't driven by fear, ego, or external expectations, but guided by the quiet, steady pulse of truth that has been inside you all along. When you live this way, every moment becomes a conversation with the universe. Every choice becomes an opportunity to align with the deeper flow, and slowly, life begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a dance, graceful, intuitive, and profoundly free. 6. The 3 elements of release. Every piece of pain you carry has its own unique shape, its own unique story. It's not just a vague heaviness in your heart or a shadow that follows you around. Each piece of quantum weight is made up of 3 essential parts: its energetic imprint, its hidden wisdom, and its path to release. When you can see and honor all 3, you create the conditions for deep, natural healing to occur. This process is not about forcing yourself to change or rushing to get rid of what feels uncomfortable. It's about listening deeply and compassionately to what your inner world has been trying to tell you all along. Only then can the burden begin to dissolve. Energetic imprint, the language of the body. The first element is what I call the energetic imprint. This is how your pain shows up in your body. It might feel like a heaviness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, a tightness in your throat, or a cold, empty sensation somewhere deep inside. Sometimes it's a sharp ache, other times a dull, lingering weight that you've grown so accustomed to, you almost forget it's there. Your body holds stories that your mind has long forgotten. Even if you can't remember the exact moment something hurt you, your body remembers. It keeps score in subtle ways through tension, fatigue, or even chronic illness. This is why the first step toward release is simply noticing where the energy lives. Sit quietly and bring your attention inward. Ask yourself, where in my body am I holding this feeling? Don't judge it. Don't try to fix it. Just observe it with the same tenderness you would offer a child who is scared or in pain. When you acknowledge the energetic imprint, you're saying to yourself, I see you. You matter. You are safe to be felt. So often, our pain lingers because it has never been truly witnessed. The body doesn't need punishment or resistance, it needs presence. And when you give it that presence, the first threads of healing begin to weave themselves quietly. Gently, hidden wisdom, the lesson beneath the pain. The second element is hidden wisdom. This is the deeper message your quantum weight carries. The insight it has been trying to deliver to you through the discomfort. Pain is rarely random. It often points to a place within you that longs to grow, to evolve. For example, the guilt might reveal a longing to live with greater integrity. Shame might be guiding you toward deeper self-compassion. Regret might be showing you what truly matters to you, so you can prioritize it moving forward. When we only see pain as a curse, we miss the gift it brings. It's like looking at a locked box and seeing only the lock, never realizing there's a treasure inside. But if you sit with your pain and gently ask, what are you here to teach me? A shift begins to happen. At first, the answer may come as a whisper, a subtle knowing. Over time, the lesson becomes clearer, and you start to see that this burden has been carrying wisdom all along. In my own life, I once carried deep shame about a choice I made years ago. For a long time, I only saw the mistake, the wound. But when I finally sat with it and listened, I discovered that the shame was guiding me to live with more authenticity, to align my actions with my true values. The moment I received that lesson, the shame began to soften. It didn't need to stay anymore, because its purpose had been fulfilled. Path to release, the way back to freedom. The third element is the path to release. And this is different for everyone. There's no one-size-fits-all formula. No perfect step-by-step process. Each piece of quantum weight carries its own unique way of being set free. For some, the path is forgiveness, not the kind of forced forgiveness that pretends the hurt never happened, but a genuine letting go that arises naturally when the heart is ready. For others, release comes through creative expression, painting, writing, dancing, singing, the act of turning pain into beauty. Sometimes, the release happens through service to others, channeling your experience into compassion that lifts someone else out of their darkness. And sometimes, it's as simple as being fully witnessed, sharing your truth with someone who can hold it with love, or even holding it yourself with deep acceptance. The key is to feel into what this particular weight needs, rather than trying to force it into a method that doesn't fit. Your soul knows the way. Your job is to listen and follow the natural flow of healing. When you bring these three elements together, sensing the energetic imprint, uncovering the hidden wisdom, and finding the unique path to release, healing begins to happen naturally. You don't have to push or control it. You simply create a safe, loving space for transformation to unfold. It's like tending to a garden. You can't pull on a flower to make it grow faster, but you can water it, nurture it, and trust the intelligence of life to do the rest. Your inner healing works the same way. As each piece of quantum weight dissolves, you'll notice subtle shifts. The heaviness in your body eases. Your mind feels clearer. Opportunities appear where before there seemed to be none. And, most importantly, you begin to feel at home within yourself again. This is the quiet miracle of release, discovering that beneath the layers of pain, you were never broken, only waiting to be free. 7. Restoring the unity of time. One of the quietest, most painful effects of quantum weight is how it fragments your sense of time. You don't notice it at first, because it happens gradually, like a slow fog rolling in, blurring the edges of your days. But over time, you begin to feel like you're living in many different places all at once, without ever feeling fully alive in any of them. A part of you stays trapped in the past, clinging to memories and moments that were never fully resolved. You replay conversations, relive regrets, and revisit old wounds, as though going over them again and again will somehow change what happened. It's as if a part of you refuses to move forward because it still believes the story isn't finished, that it must keep carrying the pain until something finally makes sense. Another part of you leaps ahead into the future, filled with worry and anticipation. You imagine every possible outcome, prepare for every what if, and try to control what hasn't even happened yet. This part of you is always bracing for impact, always tensing against things that only exist in your mind. And then, somewhere between those two extremes, there's a small, quiet part of you that exists here, in the present moment, but it's so faint, so overshadowed by the noise of past and future that you rarely notice it. It's like trying to hear a single soft note while two competing songs play loudly on either side of you. This fragmentation is exhausting. You wake up tired, not because you haven't rested, but because your energy has been scattered across time zones you can't even see. Your body is in the present, but your mind is split between what has already happened and what hasn't happened yet. It's a kind of spiritual jet lag, one that makes you feel perpetually out of sync with your own life. This is what quantum weight does. Unresolved emotions act like anchors, pulling pieces of you backward into moments that are long gone. Fears and expectations act like hooks, pulling pieces of you forward into imagined futures. The more weight you carry, the less of you remains here, now, and yet, the present moment is the only place where true healing, creativity, and transformation can occur. When you're fully present, life becomes alive in a way that feels almost miraculous. Colors seem brighter, your thoughts feel clearer, your actions become more fluid and meaningful. But when you're fractured across time, even the simplest joys slip through your fingers. The power of integration releasing quantum weight isn't just about feeling lighter emotionally. It's about integrating your timeline, calling back the scattered pieces of yourself so that you can live as a whole. Unified being. Imagine a puzzle that's been taken apart. The pieces are scattered across the table, some hidden under piles of paper, some clinging to the edge, almost falling off. That's what happens inside you when you carry too much unresolved energy. Your sense of self becomes fragmented, and it's hard to see the full picture of who you really are. Each time you consciously face and release a piece of quantum weight, it's like picking up one of those puzzle pieces and gently placing it back where it belongs. Slowly, the picture becomes clearer. Slowly, you feel more like yourself again. This work takes courage, because it asks you to visit the past without getting lost in it, and to glance toward the future without trying to control it. It's about standing firmly in the present and saying, I am here now. I am whole, even if I don't yet see every piece. Living fully in the now. When you begin to live this way, you realize how much of your life you've been missing. Think about how often you've gone through the motions without really being there, driving somewhere and not remembering the journey. Having a conversation, but not truly listening. Eating a meal while your mind races elsewhere. When you are fully present, those ordinary moments become sacred. You taste your food more deeply. You hear the unspoken emotions in someone's voice. You notice the way sunlight spills through the window and feel gratitude simply for being alive to see it. And here's the profound truth. The present moment is the only place where reality exists. The past is memory. The future is imagination. Only now is real. This doesn't mean you forget the past or stop planning for the future. It means you no longer lose yourself to them. You can hold memories without being trapped by them. You can prepare for tomorrow without letting fear steal today. As your timeline begins to unify, You find a deep sense of peace. The racing thoughts slow. The old stories lose their grip. The constant tension between who you were, who you might become, and who you are right now begins to soften. The gift of presence. I know how difficult it can be to return to the present when life feels overwhelming. There were times in my own journey when I felt torn between the ghosts of my past and the anxieties of my future, barely able to breathe under the weight of it all. But through steady practice breathing, noticing, and gently releasing, I discovered that presence isn't something you force, it's something you allow. Each moment you choose to come back to now. You reclaim a piece of yourself. Each moment you release a bit of quantum weight. You free up space for life to flow through you again. And over time, you realize something beautiful. You were never truly broken. You were simply scattered, stretched thin across too many timelines. The work of healing is the work of gathering yourself back together, one present breath at a time. When you live in this way, fully rooted in the now, you stop merely surviving. You begin to create, to connect, to experience life as it truly is, vivid, dynamic, and full of possibility. And in that state of wholeness, you discover that the present moment was never just a fleeting point between past and future. It was always the doorway to freedom. 8. Quantum weight and authentic power. For many of us, the very word power carries a heavy charge. When we think of power, we often picture domination, control, or manipulation. We remember the faces of those who hurt us, the voices that silenced us, the moments when someone used their strength not to uplift, but to diminish. And deep down, we make a quiet vow, I will never be like them. But here's the painful paradox. While we distance ourselves from the misuse of power, a part of us also longs to express our own strength. We want to speak our truth, to stand tall in who we are, to create a life that reflects our deepest values. Yet, every time we move toward that expression, fear rises. It whispers, if you shine too brightly, you'll be rejected. Or, if you take up space, you'll hurt someone. And so we dim our light, not realizing that this very act of suppression creates quantum weight around the idea of power itself. Quantum weight forms like layers of dust around these old experiences and beliefs. Each time you silence yourself, another layer is added. Each time you witness power being used to harm rather than to heal, the weight thickens. Soon, you find yourself trapped in a strange, painful tension. You crave your own authentic expression, yet you're terrified of it at the same time. This is why so many people feel conflicted about their personal growth. They say they want to step into their purpose, but some invisible force keeps pulling them back. It's not laziness or lack of discipline. It's this inner tangle of desire and fear. You want to expand, but a part of you still believes that power is dangerous, or that you are unworthy of it. I've lived this paradox myself. There was a time when I couldn't tell the difference between authentic power and destructive power. To me, they were one and the same. So I stayed small. I played safe. I told myself it was humility, when really it was fear. And in doing so, I denied the very gifts I was meant to bring into the world. But here's what I've learned. True power has nothing to do with domination. Authentic power is not about being above anyone else. It's not about controlling circumstances or forcing life to bend to your will. It's about being so deeply connected to who you are, and so in tune with the greater flow of life, that your actions arise naturally, like a river flowing downhill. When you release the quantum weight around power, you begin to see it differently. You realize that power is not something you take or hoard. It's something you allow to move through you. It's like a current of energy that flows freely when you stop blocking it with old fears and misunderstandings. Think of a tree standing tall in a forest. The tree doesn't apologize for its height. It doesn't shrink so the other trees won't feel small. It simply grows, expressing its nature fully. And in doing so, It offers shade, shelter, and oxygen to everything around it. That is authentic power, rooted, natural, generous. When you step into this kind of power, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't have to fight to be seen or heard. Your presence speaks for itself. There's a quiet strength that radiates from you, and others feel it not as a threat, but as an invitation. They sense that when you rise, you make room for them to rise too. But before you can live from this place, you must face the old wounds that taught you to fear your own strength. You must gently peel back the layers of quantum weight that have wrapped around your natural expression. This isn't about blaming the past or shaming yourself for the ways you've hidden. It's about bringing compassion to those parts of you that learned to stay small because, at one time, it felt safer that way. The process begins with awareness. Notice the moments when you hesitate to speak your truth or step forward with confidence. Ask yourself, whose voice am I hearing right now? Is this truly me? Or is it an old imprint from the past? Each time you do this, you reclaim a piece of your authentic power. As you release more and more of this weight, something remarkable happens. Life begins to flow differently. Decisions feel clearer. Relationships become more honest and alive. Opportunities seem to find you effortlessly because you're no longer tangled in the push and pull of fear and self-doubt. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to understand that authentic power is not personal, it's universal. It doesn't belong to you alone. It moves through you, like sunlight through a window. Your only task is to keep the window clean, to let the light shine without distortion. When you live from this place, power is no longer something you fear or resist. It becomes a natural expression of life itself. You no longer shrink to protect others or dominate to protect yourself. You simply stand, fully present, fully alive, fully yourself. And in doing so, you give others silent permission to do the same. Because when one person remembers their authentic power, it creates a ripple effect. It reminds everyone around them that they, too, were born to stand tall, not over others, but alongside them, in harmony with the great unfolding of life. 9. Knowing when to pause before adding more weight. One of the most profound lessons I've learned on this journey of healing is that it's not only about releasing the weight of the past, it's also about not creating more weight today. Think of it like cleaning a house. You can spend hours scrubbing, polishing, and clearing out old clutter. But if you keep bringing in new piles of mess every single day, the house will never truly feel spacious or peaceful. The same is true for your inner world. We spend so much time digging through old memories, healing past wounds, and making peace with what has been. But if we don't change how we meet the present moment, we'll keep storing up new unprocessed emotions, new resentments, new regrets layer upon layer, like dust settling on a surface you just cleaned. This is why learning to pause is essential. It's not about being perfect or never feeling pain again. It's about catching yourself in real time, before the raw energy of a present experience hardens into another piece of quantum weight. The moment of choice. Every moment. Life presents you with experiences that stir your emotions. Someone says something hurtful, plans fall apart, an opportunity slips away, or perhaps nothing dramatic happens at all, just a subtle tension. Is a kiet, unis. You can't kite name. In these moments, there is a window of choice. It's small and fleeting, but incredibly powerful. You can either acknowledge what you're feeling and allow it to move through you, or you can resist it, bury it, pretend it's not there. When you resist, that emotion doesn't vanish. It freezes. It becomes like a drop of water turning into ice, storing itself somewhere in your body and mind. Over time, these frozen fragments collect, forming the layers of quantum weight we've been talking about. But when you pause and meet the feeling directly, something very different happens. Instead of solidifying, the energy flows. It passes through you like a wave. And just like a wave returning to the ocean, it leaves you clearer, lighter, and more at peace. The practice of daily clearing. You don't need hours of meditation or elaborate rituals to prevent the buildup of new weight. It can be as simple as a few mindful breaths, a few moments of honest reflection. At the end of the day, or even several times throughout the day, ask yourself, what am I holding right now? Don't analyze it or judge it. Just notice. Maybe you're holding anger because someone cut you off in traffic. Maybe you're holding sadness from a conversation that didn't go as you hoped. Maybe you're holding a quiet, unspoken fear about the future. By simply naming these feelings, you bring them into the light. And in that light, they begin to soften. Sometimes, you might choose to write them down in a journal, letting the page absorb what your heart no longer needs to carry. Other times, you might speak them out loud to a trusted friend, or simply sit in silence, breathing deeply and allowing the emotion to move through you. This practice is like gently sweeping the floor each evening. It prevents small bits of dirt from accumulating into a mountain you'll have to deal with later. Why we resist the pause. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Just pause. Just feel. And yet, many of us find this incredibly difficult. Why? Because pausing requires vulnerability. It asks you to sit with discomfort rather than rushing to escape it. It asks you to witness your raw humanity without judgment, without trying to fix or explain it away. Most of us were never taught how to do this. We were taught to be strong, to keep moving, to get over it. So we push through, thinking that ignoring our feelings makes us resilient. But true resilience comes not from avoidance, but from presence, from facing what is here. Now, with gentle honesty, the gift of a clear inner space. Over time, this practice of daily clearing becomes a kind of sacred maintenance for your soul. Just as you wouldn't let your physical home fall into chaos, you begin to care for your inner home with the same devotion. When you consistently pause and tend to your emotions in the moment, you start to notice changes. Your reactions become softer. Your relationships feel lighter. Opportunities arise that you might have missed before, simply because you're no longer clouded by layers of old energy. Most importantly, you begin to feel spacious inside. There's room to breathe, room to dream, room to simply be. And in that space, your true self, the part of you that has always been whole, can finally shine through. A gentle reminder. You don't have to do this perfectly. Some days, you'll catch yourself quickly, and other days you won't notice until hours or weeks later. That's okay. What matters is the willingness to keep coming back, again and again, to the practice of pausing and releasing. Because each time you choose to meet the present moment with awareness, you prevent new weight from forming. And slowly, steadily, your life begins to feel less like a constant uphill climb and more like a flowing river, clear, vibrant, and free. This is the quiet power of knowing when to stop, when to breathe, when to let go. It's not just about healing the past. It's about protecting your future, one mindful moment at a time. 10. The reordering of reality. When you begin releasing quantum weight, something remarkable happens though. At first, it can feel unsettling, even frightening. The very fabric of your life starts to shift. Relationships, circumstances, and opportunities that were built around your old energy begin to change, dissolve, or even disappear entirely. It may feel as though the ground beneath you is moving, as if the familiar structures of your life are crumbling, and in a sense, they are. But this isn't destruction for the sake of loss. It's a reordering of reality, a natural process of alignment as your inner world transforms and your outer world follows suit. When the old falls away, for years, perhaps for your entire life, you've been carrying certain patterns within you. These patterns have shaped what you attract, what you tolerate, and what you believe you deserve. They've influenced the friendships you've formed, the careers you've pursued, and the dreams you've dared to chase or chosen to abandon. When you release the weight of those old patterns, the external structures that were built upon them can no longer stand in the same way. It's like changing the foundation of a house. The walls will shift, the furniture will move. Some rooms may need to be rebuilt entirely. At first, this can feel chaotic. You might lose a job, end a relationship, or feel strangely out of sync with people and places that once felt like home. You might even feel tempted to cling to what's familiar, even if it no longer fits, simply because the unknown feels too vast and uncertain. This is the moment when trust becomes essential, because what feels like loss is often just clearing space for the new, a natural process of alignment. Imagine a river that's been blocked by fallen branches and debris. When you begin to clear the blockage, the water rushes forward. Sometimes with surprising force, it may stir up mud and silt that had been settled for years, making the water look murky for a while. But this isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign that flow has returned. Your life works the same way. As you release quantum weight, the energy that was once trapped begins to move freely again. This movement can temporarily bring old issues to the surface, not to punish you, but to finally be seen, felt, and released. In this stage, it's important to remember things are not falling apart. They are falling into place. The changes you're experiencing are the visible evidence of your inner healing. Your outer world is simply reorganizing to match the new vibration you are embodying. From fear to faith, I know how unsettling this can be. There was a time in my life when, after a period of deep inner work, almost everything around me began to shift at once. Some relationships faded without warning. Opportunities I'd been chasing for years suddenly dissolved. At first, I thought I'd done something wrong. I felt lost, scared, and deeply alone. But over time, I began to see the pattern. The people and situations that were leaving my life weren't aligned with who I was becoming. Their departure wasn't a rejection. It was a natural clearing. And as space opened up, new connections and opportunities began to flow in, ones that resonated with the truest version of me. Looking back, I realized that what I experienced wasn't chaos at all. It was harmony being restored, trusting the new frequency. Every relationship, every circumstance, every experience carries its own frequency. When your personal frequency rises, when you heal and release old weight, anything that doesn't match will naturally fall away. It's like tuning a radio to a different station. The old signal fades, and a new one comes in clearly. This is why trust is so vital. In the midst of change, it's easy to panic and try to cling to what's leaving. But if you can stay grounded in your heart and remember the bigger picture, you'll see that life is not taking something away from you. It's rearranging itself to reflect your new state of being. Sometimes, this transition feels gentle, like a soft breeze, carrying you to a new shore. Other times, it can feel like a storm, pulling away everything that no longer serves you. Either way, the process is guided by a deep intelligence that knows exactly what you need, even when you can't see it yet. A new landscape emerges. As the dust settles, a new landscape begins to reveal itself. You notice relationships that feel lighter, more authentic. Work that once drained you is replaced by opportunities that inspire and uplift you. Even your inner dialogue changes. You speak to yourself with kindness instead of criticism, with clarity instead of confusion. What once felt like upheaval now feels like grace. You begin to see how every twist and turn was part of a greater unfolding, a design you couldn't perceive while you were still in the midst of it. This is the gift of releasing quantum weight. It doesn't just heal your past, it reshapes your present and your future. It allows life to reorganize itself around your truest essence, embracing the flow. So when you find yourself in a season of transition, remember this. What looks like endings are often beginnings in disguise. What feels like loss is often the clearing of space for something more aligned to enter. Trust the process. Trust the intelligence of the universe. And trust the wisdom of your own soul. The reordering of reality is not meant to hurt you. It's meant to free you. And as you let go, you'll find yourself living in a world that feels lighter, brighter, and more deeply aligned with who you really are. 11. Learning to listen to challenges. For much of my life, I saw challenges as proof that something was wrong with me or wrong with the world. When difficulties arose, my first instinct was to resist, to fight, to question why life seemed to be against me. I thought that if I were doing everything right, things would flow smoothly. So whenever I stumbled, whenever I hit a wall, I would immediately label it as failure. And that belief alone made every hardship feel twice as heavy. But over time, as I walked through my own shadows and began to release the layers of quantum weight, something shifted. I started to see challenges differently. They were no longer evidence of my inadequacy, nor random obstacles meant to punish me. Instead, they became signals, gentle, sometimes insistent messages from the universe showing me exactly where my consciousness was ready to grow. This shift didn't happen overnight. It came slowly, like the way dawn seeps into a dark room. At first, I barely noticed the light, but as it grew brighter, I began to understand challenges are not here to break you. They're here to shape you. The mirror of experience. Everything in life reflects something within you. When you encounter a challenge, it's like standing in front of a mirror. The situation itself isn't the enemy. It's a reflection of a belief, fear, or old wound that's ready to be seen and healed. For example, maybe you face repeated conflicts in a relationship. On the surface, it might seem like the other person is the problem. But if you look deeper, you may notice that the situation mirrors an old pattern from your childhood, a belief that you must earn love through struggle, or that you must stay silent to keep the peace. The challenge is not just about this moment. It's an invitation to bring awareness to the root of the pattern so you can finally release it. When you approach life this way, every difficulty becomes purposeful. Even pain begins to carry meaning. It's like the universe whispering, "Look here. Pay attention. This is where you are ready to expand." From resistance to curiosity. In the past, my reaction to challenges was resistance. I would tighten my body, clench my fists, and fight to control whatever was happening. This only made things worse. It was like trying to hold back the tide with my bare hands, exhausting and ultimately futile. But when I began to view challenges as guidance rather than punishment, something softened in me. Instead of saying, "Why is this happening to me?" I started asking, "What is this here to teach me?" That one question changed everything. It turned my fear into curiosity. It allowed me to step back, take a breath, and see the bigger picture. Imagine walking through a forest and coming across a fallen tree blocking your path. In the past, you might have cursed your luck, convinced that the forest was conspiring against you. But now, with curiosity, you kneel down and notice the mushrooms growing at its base, the life that thrives in its decay. You realize the fallen tree isn't there to stop you. It's part of the forest's natural rhythm. You simply need to find a new way around it. This is what happens when you stop resisting your challenges. You begin to see them as part of the greater flow of life. Even when they're uncomfortable, you recognize their purpose. Walking through with gratitude. Gratitude might seem like a strange response to hardship. Why would anyone be thankful for pain or struggle? But gratitude doesn't mean you enjoy suffering. It means you acknowledge the hidden gift within the experience. When you meet a challenge with gratitude, you're saying, "I trust that this, too, is guiding me toward greater freedom." This trust creates a kind of spaciousness in your heart. Instead of contracting in fear, you expand into acceptance. I've experienced this firsthand. There was a period in my life when everything seemed to fall apart at once. Work, relationships, even my sense of identity. It all crumbled. For a while, I was consumed by despair. But slowly, as I practiced staying present, I began to notice small openings, new insights, unexpected connections, moments of grace hidden inside the chaos. Looking back, I see that those challenges were not random. They were perfectly timed invitations for me to step into a truer version of myself. Without them, I would never have discovered the depth of my own resilience. Living with openness. When you begin to listen to your challenges instead of fighting them, life becomes less of a battle and more of a dialogue. You stop feeling like a victim of circumstances and start feeling like a participant in a living, evolving relationship with the universe. This doesn't mean you'll never feel pain or confusion again. Challenges will still arise, but instead of shrinking back or pushing against them, you meet them with a quiet sense of curiosity and faith. You trust that even when you can't see the full picture, there is meaning woven through every experience. Over time, this approach creates a profound sense of peace. You no longer waste energy fighting what is. You move gracefully with life's rhythms, like a dancer responding to music only they can hear. The hidden gift challenges will always come. That's part of being alive. But how you meet them will determine whether they weigh you down or lift you up. When you see challenges as signals rather than threats, they become sacred teachers. They point you toward the places where your heart is ready to open wider, where your soul is ready to grow. So the next time life presents you with difficulty, pause for a moment, breathe deeply, and instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this?" try asking, "What is this here to show me?" If you listen closely, you may find that the very challenge you once feared is actually the key to your liberation. And you'll walk through it not with resistance, but with gratitude, knowing that each step forward brings you closer to the wholeness that has always been within you. 12. Awakening the frequency of creation. There is a profound moment that comes after the heaviness, lifts a moment so subtle, you might miss it if you're not paying attention. When the layers of quantum weight dissolve, you don't just feel lighter, you don't just feel free of the past. Something deeper begins to awaken inside you. Something that was always there, but buried beneath the noise. It is your creative frequency, the pure, unfiltered expression of life moving through you. For so long, this frequency has been muffled by old fears, regrets, and limiting beliefs. Imagine a beautiful instrument covered in dust. No matter how skilled the musician, the sound will be distorted until the dust is cleared away. In the same way, your natural ability to create, to imagine, to dream has always been present, but it couldn't resonate fully because of the weight you were carrying. When that weight begins to fall away, it's as if the strings are finely tuned. The dust is wiped clean, and suddenly, you hear the clear, vibrant music of your soul, the flow of inspiration. At first, this shift can feel surprising, even magical. Ideas begin to arise seemingly out of nowhere. You might be walking through the park, washing dishes, or drifting off to sleep, when suddenly, a vision or insight comes rushing in. It feels effortless, like catching a wave that was always there, waiting for you to notice it. This is the state of co-creation. It's not about forcing yourself to be creative or straining to make something happen. It's about aligning with the natural current of the universe so deeply that you and life are moving as one. Think about the last time you were so absorbed in something you loved: painting, writing, gardening, playing music, or even having a deep, meaningful conversation. In those moments, you weren't trying. You weren't self-conscious or worried about outcomes. You were simply present, and the energy of creation flowed through you effortlessly. That is what begins to happen on a much larger scale. When quantum weight dissolves, your whole life starts to feel like that kind of flow. From survival to creation. When you were carrying heavy emotional weight, much of your energy was tied up in survival mode. You were constantly managing old pain, protecting yourself from imagined threats, and navigating patterns that kept you stuck. There was little space left for genuine creativity. But once that weight is released, all of that energy is suddenly freed. And where does it go? It flows naturally into creation. This is why, after deep healing, people often experience a burst of inspiration. They start painting, writing, building, or envisioning new possibilities for their lives. They don't necessarily set out to do these things. It simply happens. Life begins to express itself through them, like water rushing through a riverbed that's finally been cleared of stones and debris. And here's the beautiful part. This creativity isn't just about art or hobbies. It shows up in every area of your life. The way you solve problems changes. The way you connect with others becomes more vibrant and authentic. Even the way you perceive challenges shifts. They no longer feel like walls blocking you, but like invitations to innovate and grow. The universe as a partner. When you enter this state of co-creation, you begin to sense that you're not doing it alone. There's a quiet, steady feeling of partnership with something larger than yourself. Some people call it the universe. Others call it God, Source, or simply life itself. Whatever name you give it, the experience is unmistakable. You start to notice synchronicities, those perfectly timed encounters and opportunities that seem too precise to be random. You'll think of someone, and they'll call you. You'll take a small step toward a dream, and the next step will appear almost effortlessly. It's as if life is saying, I see you. I'm with you. Let's create this together. This doesn't mean there won't be challenges or effort involved, but the effort no longer feels heavy or forced. It feels like being carried by a current, like dancing with a partner who knows the steps, even when you don't. Beyond old limits, perhaps the most astonishing part of this awakening is how it dissolves the old boundaries you thought were fixed. The fears that once held you back no longer seem relevant. The rules you believed about what's possible begin to crumble. You realize that many of those limits were never real. They were simply reflections of the quantum weight you carried. Without those distortions, you begin to experience life as vast and open. The questions you ask yourself change. Instead of, can I do this? You start asking, what do I want to create? Instead of, what if I fail? You wonder, what might be possible if I simply try? And with each step, your external world begins to reflect this newfound freedom. Doors open that you didn't even know were there. Connections form with people who share your vision and values. Opportunities that once seemed out of reach now feel natural. Inevitable even. Living as a creator. To live from this space is to live as a conscious creator, not a controller, not someone forcing life to bend to their will, but a partner in an ongoing, beautiful dance of becoming. You don't need to have every detail figured out. You don't need to know exactly where the path leads. All you need is the willingness to listen, to act when inspiration arises, and to trust that the same intelligence that guides the stars is guiding you. 2. As you continue to clear old weight and embody this creative frequency, your life becomes a living work of art. Every conversation, every choice, every moment becomes part of the masterpiece you're co-creating with the universe. And perhaps the most humbling, awe-inspiring truth of all is this, that creative power was never outside of you. It was always within, quietly waiting beneath the layers of pain and fear. The moment you release what no longer serves you, it rises radiant and unstoppable, ready to shape a reality more beautiful than you ever dared to imagine. The doorway to freedom, quantum weight, has never been your enemy, though it may have felt like a heavy burden, like a shadow that followed you everywhere you went. It was never here to punish you. It has always been a messenger, holding within it the lessons you weren't yet ready to face, the truths you weren't yet ready to claim. Think of it like a teacher who waits patiently at the edge of the classroom. It does not force you to learn. It simply stands there, holding the lesson, until you are ready to open your eyes and say, "I'm ready now." The heaviness, you feel the pressure, the stuckness, even the pain is not a sign that you are broken or that life has turned against you. It is a sign that you are reaching a threshold. Just as water builds up behind a dam until it must burst forth, your soul has been gathering strength, preparing for a moment of release. What feels like an ending is often just the final contraction before a profound expansion. This point of intensity, this breaking point you feel, is a doorway. On one side is the old self, with its familiar patterns, limitations, and fears. On the other side is freedom, the vast, open landscape of who you truly are, unencumbered by the weight you've carried for so long. But here's the paradox: no one can walk you through that doorway but you. The universe can show you the path. It can send you signs and synchronicities. It can whisper to your heart in 100 different ways. But ultimately, it is your courage, your willingness to step forward, that turns possibility into reality. Choosing to see differently. When you begin to view quantum weight not as a curse, but as a container for growth, everything changes. You stop running from it. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of life's challenges. Instead, you begin to see that every moment of heaviness has been guiding you toward your own wholeness. The regrets you've held onto, the anger you've swallowed, the grief you've carried, they are not random or meaningless. Each one contains a seed of transformation. And when you meet these experiences with compassion instead of resistance, the seed cracks open. It grows into wisdom, strength, and clarity. This is why releasing quantum weight is never just about letting go. It's about integration. It's about gathering the pieces of yourself that have been scattered across time and bringing them home. It's about remembering that even the most painful parts of your journey were never separate from your healing. They were part of it all along. Healing the collective. And here's the beauty of this work. When you free yourself, you don't just heal your own life. You contribute to the healing of the entire world. Each time you dissolve a piece of quantum weight within you, the collective field becomes a little lighter. Each moment of forgiveness ripples outward, touching people you may never meet. Each act of courage creates space for others to be courageous too. Imagine if thousands, millions of us chose to do this inner work. Imagine a world where fear and scarcity were no longer the dominant frequencies, where love and possibility flowed freely through the collective field. That world begins with you. It begins right here, right now, with the choices you make in this very moment. The threshold is here. The universe has been preparing you for this moment. Everything you've been through, the joy and the sorrow, the victories and the heartbreaks, has brought you here, to the edge of transformation. The door is open. The question is not whether you are worthy of stepping through it, or whether you are ready in some perfect, flawless way. The question is simply, will you say yes? Will you say yes to releasing what no longer serves you? Will you say yes to becoming more fully yourself than you've ever dared to be? Will you say yes to a life that is guided by love rather than fear? Expansion rather than contraction? The universe is ready. It has been ready all along. And now, it waits for you to take that one brave step forward. As you stand before this threshold, take a deep breath and feel the truth of this moment. You are not alone. Every soul who has ever chosen freedom is walking beside you. Every star in the sky, every beat of your heart, every breath you take is cheering you on. The weight you've carried was never here to defeat you. It was here to shape you, to strengthen you, to prepare you for the life that is waiting on the other side of this doorway. So I leave you with this final question, one that only you can answer. Are you ready to step through? Are you ready to become the truest, most powerful version of yourself? The version that has been waiting all along to be set free. The door is open. The choice is yours.